After getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning from my Thursday excursion to Pittsburgh to see the Los Angeles Dodgers at the Pittsburgh Pirates, I woke up 5 hours later at 8 o'clock on Friday morning to head down to Maryland to see the Los Angeles Dodgers at the Baltimore Orioles on Friday night. However, before that baseball game, we checked out a museum that used to be known as the Irish Railroad Workers Museum in Baltimore. It is now just the Irish American History Museum in Baltimore. And then we would go on to check out the Guinness Brewery and the Guinness Brewery restaurant in the Baltimore area as well. This museum does a really good job of telling the story of Irish Americans in a northeastern city that doesn't necessarily get a lot of attention for their Irish American communities, not like Boston or New York or even Philadelphia. Baltimore has definitely been influenced by Irish Americans, and this museum covers that really, really well. It is also a donation to enter the museum, so you pay what you can afford, which is really great. I would ask that you pay as much as you can because they are really trying to do a lot of great things, but this is a great museum and you can go for a fairly reasonable price. Then it was off to the Guinness Brewery in the Baltimore area. This was a really fun trip. I hope you enjoy.
Get into the brewing process, you'll see mash tun, you'll see modern ton. For the most part, all beer comes from Germany, 1010, 1020. Trappist breweries, monks making beer. We go back 5,000 years ago to Persia, where actually discovered beer. China said 7,000 years ago they were making beer. And a couple days ago I read an article that Egypt said 12,000 years ago they were making beer. So this is what we know. We've been making beer a very long time. We did not understand beer until the 1800s when Louis Pasteur discovered there's bacterial yeast on every surface. That is when we started manipulating yeast. That's when we started actually determining alcohol content levels. And that is when at the very late 18th century, all beer started having lids on it. Okay? Everything before the late 18th century had no lids. All beer in the whole world was made with no lids. Whatever's floating in the air is part of your beer. Kind of cool, kind of gross. How was asbestos? How was lead paint? What about the Industrial Revolution? What about brick dust? There's a direct correlation with 15, 16, 17, 1800s. But certainly people not living long with certain today's standards, they're drinking contaminated beer. You have to have 4 ingredients to call something beer. You have to have the water, you have to have the grain, you have to have hops, and you have to have yeast. It used to be free. You used to not have to have hops. 100 years ago, hops were discovered along with alcohol to be a natural preservative. That's where the IPA and the Indian Pale Ale comes from. So therefore, we started incorporating hops. So now in order to call something beer, water, grain, hops, yeast. Ciders and seltzers are not beer. They have alcohol, but they're not beer. There's the definition of what beer actually is. Alright, so let's start with the ingredients. When you make a high-end beer, guys, you literally should have 4 to 6 ingredients in your beer. That's about it. When you have a mass-produced beer, look at the ingredients. There's going to be over 35 different ingredients that are chemicals in it. We don't want any chemicals in our beer, period. Water and yeast do not like chemicals, and we do not like chemicals. Okay? That's why beers, literally, that's why German beers are so great. The reason why we're using high-end ingredients is we can get multiple flavors from that ingredient. And even though when you have a beer like the Blonde that only has 4 ingredients in it, it's going to taste like it has a lot. And that's the whole idea. So, water. We got phenomenal water. That's why we're here. Anyone live in Baltimore County? Baltimore City? Howard County? Alright, we all have the same water. Liberty Reservoir, Lock Raven Reservoir, Pretty Boy Reservoir, ranked the top 10 best water sources in the United States for the last 10 years in a row. When we get delivered at home, pretty much just like here, it's fluoridated water. All you have to do is run that through a charcoal filter to get rid of chlorine. We have perfect organic water for making beer. It does not come from the Inner Harbor. I know everyone wants to say that, but it does not. And our dirty Our dirty river behind our brewery in Dublin, that's not where the water comes, bless you, that's not where the water comes from either. So in Dublin, all traditional Guinness, extra stout, port, extra stout, coffee, nitro, Guinness, zero, Guinness, draft stout, everything in the whole United States comes from Dublin, the traditional stuff. Dublin can't grow their own hops and grains, those all come from Germany, okay? And the water from there comes from the rain-fed mountains. So think of like South American limes, Andes Mountains, okay? Nutrients, silts, and all the silts and proteins and nutrients are coming down organically. No chemicals, no pesticides needed. Really, really great ingredients when you don't have chemicals involved, okay? So, it's all about water. We literally can brew any kind of beer we want in the world. Not because we want to, because we physically can. Physically can. Water dictates to you the styles of beers you can brew. That's why we're here. That's why there's 30 breweries within 15 minutes of us. Just like Asheville, North Carolina, the Finger Lakes, Lake Erie, Colorado, Utica, Richmond, wherever there's a ton of breweries, they're there because of the water. Period. Okay? If you can't get rid of the chemicals in your water through filtration, water is the one liquid that you can't turn up the heat and vaporize your froth into steam because you won't have any water. The reason why it's so hot Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday when we are brewing here, which means the kettles are going, and those are the kettles up here, guys. Because when you get 600 gallons of beer, you bring it up to a boil, you're going to lose 10% through evaporation. It's a 4,000 square foot room. Our boil time is 10 hours in one day. Just the boil is 10 hours in one day. 4,000 square foot room, 10-hour boil, 600 gallons of beer, 60 gallons of humidity.
We were definitely pleasantly surprised with the restaurant. This appetizer of the really big pretzel was pretty good, but then once the burgers came out, the burgers were great. My wife Courtney got a regular burger, and then my mother and I both got veggie burgers, and they were fantastic. But the real star of the show at this restaurant is the ketchup. I don't know what spices they put in their ketchup, but after I used it for my fries, I actually put more on my veggie burger, even though I never put ketchup on veggie burgers, and it was really, really good. So this field right here in Baltimore, Maryland, Babe Ruth Field, this is actually the field where Babe Ruth played, for lack of a better term, high school baseball. He would have played probably his little league through high school baseball here on this field. It obviously would have been much, much different at the time, but I believe Cal Ripken and some other investors, before they bulldozed it and just got rid of it forever, they invested so it could be a multi-purpose sports field. But Babe Ruth went to an orphanage, or a school for wayward boys, and this would have been the field where he played, but there's even more Babe Ruth history right here in the middle of Baltimore. So there was a fire at the school where they ended up losing most of the buildings, and Babe helped them out with that as well. But this building here, I believe, is one of the rare remaining ones from the time that the Babe went to school here, and he would have had classes in here that would have taught technical skills like making men's dress shirts and things like that. He would have learned that here in this building right here in Baltimore, and now it definitely needs some upkeep. So this is the main school building, the one that burnt down while Babe Ruth was still alive, but while it was still an active school. And the Babe had fundraisers to raise the money to build this building. So even though he didn't go to school in this building, this is here because of him. As you can see, it is absolutely in ruins right now. And somebody, we're gonna have to find somebody who is gonna work to fix this. This is too important a piece of history to just be decaying like this. This is awful. Now here we are at the retired numbers outside Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Here is the 42 that every team in Major League Baseball retires for the great Jackie Robinson. Number 20 is for Frank Robinson. Frank Robinson is actually one of the most underrated players in Major League Baseball history. He's really like a top 10, 15 guy, but nobody ever discusses him in that way. Look up his numbers, absolutely amazing. And the Orioles had the greatest manager of all time in Earl Weaver, way ahead of his time. That's his number 4, which is retired here at Camden Yards. And here is the Babe Ruth statue outside Oriole Park at Camden Yards. And boy, do we have some great news coming today. I'll tell you in a bit. So here's one heck of an update. They actually changed everything, made an announcement. They scratched Tyler Glasnow for tonight, and Shohei Ohtani is going to be the starting pitcher. So the first time in my life, I'm getting to see Shohei pitch in person. I am so excited. We saw that Babe Ruth statue, and now we're gonna get to see the Japanese Babe Ruth, the guy who's doing things that haven't been done since the Bambino, and we are gonna see him do his thing tonight. So exciting, man. Wow. This has been a hectic trip, but it is worth it now. This game was on Friday night, but the following night, the Orioles celebrated the 30th anniversary of Cal Ripken breaking Lou Gehrig's streak for most consecutive games played in Major League Baseball history. We were at Saturday's game, and I will have that video in a future vlog. That's where I'm going to leave things on this video. Unfortunately, the Orioles would win the game on a walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth. We would be back on Saturday with more from the Baltimore area, and then one last Dodgers game for my 3-day excursion of baseball. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll be back with that vlog very soon.